Down there, Baito Mwaseo, Your Excellency, Brian has Collins, has really been able to give an overview of why we are here. And so just in the interest of time, Your Excellency, I would just like to introduce all my colleague PSs who are present here today, who have regulatory authorities under their state departments. PSs, please, if you could stand up so that we can very quickly introduce you. I'll start with PS Omolo, Internal Security and National. Our host here who oversees SECU, also Dr. Beatrice Inyangala of Higher Education. Beatrice Inyangala of Higher Education. Bwana Shadrach Mwadime, Excellency Jacob Fikirini of Youth Affairs, Anatugotea. We have Madam Rono of Parliamentary Affairs. She takes care of all the legislative issues for our 10,000 acres. As ikuja kukatakatia, we want it just as it is. When he was very excited about all the land he saw here in Kitui. Isaboke of Broadcasting and Communications. Madam Betsy Jage of Fisheries and Blue Economy. We have, of course, Bwana Kimutai. He is now in mining. And Your Excellency, there's a lot of minerals here in Kitui. So I'm always pushing my colleague PS Atutole Sana. We have Dr. Imbunya of Public Service, Karibu Sana. We have Mheshimiwa Abdisalan of National Coordination, Karibu Sana. And last but not least, we have Madam Regina Ombam of Trade, who we work very closely with. Karibu Sana. Your Excellency, we also have chairpersons of regulatory authorities and agencies. If you can all stand up, I won't be able to introduce all of you because of interest of time, but please, all the chairs of regulatory authorities and agencies, tafadhali musimame. Asanteni sana. We also have CEOs of regulatory authorities and agencies. Please, CEOs, if you can also just stand up. Let's clap for them, tafadhali. Your Excellencies, Head of Public Service always reminds us, hii ndio serikali kwa ground. And these are the people who make sure that we interface with the citizens in terms of ensuring that they are safe and they are able to go around their daily chores without any issues. We also have cooperation secretaries of the regulatory authorities and agencies. Please, cooperation secretaries, you can stand up also and be recognized. Cooperation secretaries, asanteni sana. I believe we also have heads of internal audits of regulatory authorities. No? Yes, a few of them, excellent internal auditors. And we have independent directors of the RAAs as well. Are they here? Independent directors, yes. They also came, they're the ones who oversee their institutions. Your Excellency, thank you very much. This is the team that is here. We would like to give a special thank you to the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. He has really put us together as PSAs and regulatory authorities and kept us on our toes to ensure that as we regulate, we also enforce with a human face. We ensure that we don't overburden our citizens with too much bureaucracy and licensing. And most importantly, Your Excellency, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service always reminds us to enforce fairly, but also very firmly to ensure that our citizens don't just feel us on the ground as government, but that they enjoy our services, because many of them also pay for our services as we regulate them. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say hello. We wish you a lovely 3 days in Kitui County. Na tafadhali padiem yenu yote ibaki Kitui. Tafadhali yote ibaki hapa Kitui. Ndio tujenge our local economy. Thank you very much. God bless you, and we wish you a fantastic day. Asanteni sana.
I think he deserves more claps than that, because he's the host, and you might not know, because of the vastness of this land, a snakebite, the PS is the right person to call. Just while holding your brief PS, there are two cadres of people that have not been introduced. That is the chairpersons, commissioners, and CEOs of independent constitutional commissions. You can be upstanding. We notice you've also come in numbers so that we can also recognize you. Thank you very much. And to the staffers from the Executive Office of the President, both from the Office of the President under the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service, and the Office of His Excellency the Deputy President, you can be upstanding so that they see you also come in numbers. Thank you very much. Just to remind you, the theme for today, for these 3 days is consistent measurement and evaluation of real regulatory impact, emphasis on the ground. And for you to be able to access this program, when you registered, you can be able to access the app of Eventify. Please go to the app where you can be able to access the program, and you can be able to know what will happen, because everything is being posted there real time. Please go to the app of Eventify for you to appreciate what comes next, and for you to note that where the program and where we're headed, because of austerity measures, but pardon us, because technology has been able to come in for us. And as you notice, our chief guest is that the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service has done many meetings of this kind. And people here today are wondering why this meeting is physical, because all his meetings are normally virtual. We've done more than 20 virtual meetings in the last about 6 months. But due to the necessity of this event, this is one of the few ones that we've done a physical meeting. To welcome us now properly, I wish to call upon the chairman of the Council of Southeastern Kenya University, Professor Crispus Kiamba, to give us a welcome note on behalf of the host institution as we proceed. Welcome very much, Professor.
Before you do the clap, let's get this behind us. My name is Dr. Ndari. I'm here to represent our chair, Professor Crispus Kiamba, who was unable to come. So for those who are wondering, why is this very young professor? I'm not yet there, but I'll get there soon. I was seated with a neighbor who confessed that they already sent their per diem home, and I asked them, are you going to pay for your hotel? They say there's free, sir. But that's a good thing. It's going to happen, and please leave as much money in Seku as you can. Since I was sent by our chairman, please allow me to just read his speech. Your Excellency, the Deputy President, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, distinguished heads of regulatory authorities and agencies. I've seen my peers is here, Dr. Beatrice Nyangala. If I don't mention your name, maybe there'll be a show cause at some point. I've seen my friend, we grew up together, Stevie Saboke. Thank you very much. Esteemed guests, on your extreme left is members of SECU. Please, members of SECU, rise on your feet so that you greet the people and welcome them. Thank you very much. Let me ask in particular for you to see our Vice Chancellor, Professor Douglas Chitanda. Professor is the one who has been working with the Office of the organizers for the good morning. Your Excellency, it's my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to this important national forum, the third annual and Agencies Conference. On behalf of Council, management, staff, students of Southeastern Kenya University, and the entire SECU community, we'd like to extend our warmest greetings and appreciation to each one of you for taking time to be part of this very historic event in our compound. We wish at the very outset to sincerely acknowledge and appreciate the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service for convening this important event, conference, on this very ground where we normally hold our graduation. We are especially honored by the presence of Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Professor Kithure Kindiki. Your commitment to strengthen governance systems and enhance service delivery continues to inspire confidence and progress across our nation. Your Excellency, this conference comes at a critical time when the role of regulatory authorities and agencies is more pivotal than ever. In a rapidly evolving socioeconomic landscape, effective regulation is not only essential for ensuring compliance and accountability, but also for fostering innovation, safeguarding public interest, and promoting sustainable development. At SECU, we are proud to host this conference and provide the venue and environment that enables such important national event to take place. We affirm our commitment to bridging academia, policy, and practice in support of national development and good governance. Please. I am reminded that our own guest house is full for tonight, but next time you're around this place, please look for this facility. Mwe aseo. A little bit louder. You know, we need to learn something. Mwe aseo. You got it right. In the near future, this area will host a large-scale gala goat production. Can I repeat that again? Yes, large-scale gala goat production. And a major source is right on my left. I have done my part. And when I went there, I found that there are many good things, including honey. Yes, come and visit that booth. There's a lot to learn from that end. In closing, I once again express our sincere gratitude to the conveners, partners.
Thank you very much. All of us now feel welcome to SEPU. And it is at that point that I wish to welcome on stage PS Beatrice Nyangala to give keen remarks. Then you may proceed to welcome.
Big PSs, chairs, and CEOs of all regulatory authorities and agencies welcome you to the Southeastern Kenya University. You feel welcome? You feel at home? Good. This university is located in the center of the semi-arid and arid lands of our country. And we recognize that we'll advance our agenda in terms of dryland agriculture and natural resource management. The power to do all that appertains to that degree. And subsequently, for each and every one of us institution like this, how is it helping you to make a difference in the institution in which you serve? And keeping them focused on the core mandate of the organization you serve. I know service. I speak for all of us here today when I say that we wholeheartedly embrace the objective. We shall live here invigorated, motivated to push the boundaries, and the results will speak. Your Excellency, you may sit. Okay, I would want us to invite Hopes in a special manner. Shake 3 fingers for our Head of Public Service. Now please touch your cheek. 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 Can you touch your cheek?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Fired for asking my boss to stand. So before I'm fired, I have to deal with you. Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, standing committees of regulatory authorities and agencies present, all distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, allow me to warmly welcome you to through your convening authority, sustained follow-up and engagement with ministries, departments and agencies, your office has played a critical role in unlocking regulatory bottlenecks, reinforced that while well-intentioned, was not functioning optimally. We found fragmentation of mandates with multiple regulators operating within the same sectors without sufficient coordination. Investors were often required to seek approvals from multiple agencies for a single activity, sometimes with conflicting requirements. Inspections were at times duplicated institutions. Most critically, there was limited measurement of whether regulatory actions were translating into real improvements on the ground, executing their mandates and where the gaps lay. This scientific and methodical approach informed the establishment of the audit space, whose role in oversight, accountability, and in reinforcing institutional effectiveness and ensuring that corrective actions are sustained. It has been guided by the responsibility assigned under Executive Order Number 1 of 2025 to ensure the overall efficiency and performance of government. The campaign effort anchored on clear accountability and sustained coordination. This campaign targets key actors across the governance chain, beginning with principal secretaries who serve as accounting of regulatory mandates and for translating policy intent into practical outcomes on the ground. Your Excellency, the journey over the past 3 years has been deliberate and progressive. Before us is no longer whether systems are in place, but whether those systems are producing results that can be seen, measured, and of real regulatory impact on the ground. This theme calls upon all of us to move from activity to impact, from process to outcomes, and from intention to evidence. Your Excellency, and in a coordinated manner, they stimulate economic activity, facilitate investment, and protect public interest. When they do not, the effects are immediate. As we consolidate the gains made under this campaign, we are now entering the next phase of this journey. The intention going forward is for regulatory authorities and agencies to take full stewardship, expected not to drop the ball, but to ensure that the regulatory space remains strong, responsive, and impactful. It also envisages that the regulators themselves will take the lead. As we commence this conference, we do so with a clear sense of purpose and responsibility. This platform provides an opportunity to reflect on progress, interrogate our evidence and experience, and remain focused on practical solutions that can be implemented and sustained. With those few remarks, Your Excellency, to come all the way from Nairobi to Kitui, I know, Your Excellency, you are keen to join us in Eldoret. The strong team that you sent, about 5 cabinet secretaries came, and they represented you ably. Your Excellency, it is now my honor to invite you to give your keynote address and official press conference. Thank you, and karibu sana, Your Excellency.
Please be seated. Please be seated. Hopes you have done better than Beatrice. She told us that we learn more by what we see, but not what we hear. She forgot to invite her boss. And even when she was reminded, she went back to the podium and said and did so many things except inviting the head of public service. So I was asking PS Raymond, so what did we... So let me start by thanking this great institution, an academic institution, because I spent quite a big chunk of my working life early in this kind of a setting. At your annual third Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference, ecosystem, which is responsible for regulating the interface between government and our citizens. I commend the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service for steering the continuous structured engagements with regulators. Thank you very much, Felix, for fostering candid reflections, strengthened and sharpened alignment with our national priorities, particularly our driving paradigm of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. On a daily basis, I hear the voices of Kenyans across our country, from Kisumu, where fishermen and traders are demanding for clean, pollution-free water, to Eldoret, where farmers and transporters are looking for affordable and predictable fuel, to Mombasa, where businesses call for fair standards and fair competition, to Garissa and Turkana, where communities emphasize on safe access to safe water and environmental protection, Nairobi, where wananchi expects safe buildings, reliable services, and orderly urban systems. I'm sure even here in Kitui, the call for responsive regulatory environment echoes. Across all these regions, the message is clear and consistent that Kenyans want a government that delivers, that protects and serves them efficiently, and creates a fair and predictable environment for opportunity. In many respects, the government that citizens encounter is you, the regulators. Regulatory authorities and agencies are the most visible and tangible expression of government in the daily lives of the people. You exercise statutory power to license, set standards, enforce compliance, inspect, approve, and sometimes take action. In the process, influencing markets, safeguarding livelihoods, and protecting the welfare of millions of Kenyans. Today, as has been said, the government consists of 127 regulatory authorities and agencies operating under various state departments, each with far-reaching authority across the economy and society. Consequently, millions of daily interactions between citizens and government occur through these agencies. As such, no citizen should have to ask, where is government? Because government is present wherever rules are set, standards enforced, safety assured, and fairness is upheld. Colleagues in government, this reality places a profound responsibility on all of us, because when regulatory action is weak, inconsistent, or compromised, government itself appears weak. And when regulatory processes are opaque or unfair, government is perceived as unjust. But when regulation is firm, fair, and predictable, government earns trust, credibility, and legitimacy. This is why failures in regulation are so costly, because when buildings collapse, when water bodies are polluted, when businesses shut down due to multiple taxation, When no manner of regulatory ills affect citizens, they reflect a breakdown in the everyday touch points through which citizens judge government. The Constitution provides guidance on the obligations of the public service, of which the regulators are part. Under Article 232, the public service generally is required to be responsive, accountable, transparent, and efficient. And this must be demonstrated through the actions of regulators who set norms, establish and enforce standards, and ensure order in the functioning of the economy and society. This is why the theme of this conference, consistent measurement and evaluation of real regulatory and accountability, demands a decisive shift from reporting activities to delivering results, from process to outcomes, and from intention to measure. Colleagues, we must be able to show, using credible evidence, that regulatory actions are reducing risks, improving compliance, enhancing fairness in markets, lowering the cost of doing business, and ultimately improving the quality of life for the people of Kenya. At the same time, we must ensure that the presence of 127 regulators translates into coordinated strength, clarity, and efficiency, rather than duplication, confusion, and delay. Today, we are called upon to embed a culture of evidence-based decision-making, continuous monitoring and measurable performance in our operations. Regulatory authorities and agencies are challenged to adopt clear indicators, credible data systems, and regular evaluation mechanisms to ensure that regulatory actions translate into tangible outcomes. Ultimately, our success will not be measured by the number of regulations issued or inspections conducted, but rather by the real improvements experienced by citizens through safer products, fairer markets, reduced cost of doing business, and enhanced public trust in government. The effectiveness of government will largely be a reflection of the effectiveness of regulators. Colleagues, I also wish to emphasize the importance of visibility in regulatory work. It is not enough that you are working. Your work must be seen, felt, and experienced by the citizens you serve. Government action must be clear, consistent, and visible in the public space, reflecting the seriousness and discipline with which we execute our mandate. We cannot allow the narrative to be shaped by the naysayers when real and meaningful work is being undertaken across our institutions. I therefore urge you to ensure that your actions are clear and visible, that your impact is felt on the ground. I urge us to shift from the conservative, philosophical approach to regulation to a more responsive and citizen-centric stance in recognition of the impact of our actions and decisions on public trust. Let us commit to delivering regulation that is firm, fair, visible, and impactful. I think I can stop there and declare the third annual Regulatory Authorities and Agencies Conference officially open. Thank you very much. The reason I have decided to stop there is because I want to listen a little bit on some of the presentations so that I maximize on this rare occasion I have. I was telling Felix that since I left academia some years ago, almost 20 years ago, I rarely get an opportunity to speak refreshing things and to get enriched to the kind of things I do on a daily basis. are quite complicated things, you know, and the discussions are quite down here and difficult. So when I have a moment like this one, I savor it. So I will hang around for about an hour and listen to a few more speakers because I've seen wonderful people here, and I'm sure the resource persons who are going to speak have ideas that we can pick from. I've even seen my professional senior, Professor Makau Mutua here, who in 5 minutes can write a book. So we, please a round of applause for Professor Makau. I think he's one of the most successful sons of Kenya. Very humble, very measured, but Professor Makau, we may not know because we are at home, but I know the kind of work you've done around the world. And I still have very fond memories of our days in the third world approaches to international law in many places. And all the other colleagues, it's good to reconnect. I look forward to listening a little bit. And before I forget and get into trouble, like Beatrice almost did, I bring you greetings and good wishes from our leader, President William Samoei Ruto. Thank you very much and have a good morning.
Another round of applause for His Excellency, the Deputy President. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those very, very inspiring remarks. And now we feel energized to be able to start our conference and go on to serve the citizens, founded on our agenda, which is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Your Excellency, before we go to the next session, please allow me to recognize some of to this function. We have Honorable Kawaya, Member of National Assembly for Mwala. Makofi tafadhali. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa Kawaya. We have Honorable John Bwire, MP for Taveta. Makofi kwake tafadhali. MP for Lafe constituency. Karibu sana. Your Excellency, we also have one of our local leaders here, former minority leader of Kitui County Assembly and member of County Assembly, former, for this area called Kwavonza. It's called John Kisangao. Here locally, Your Excellency, we know him as Mbake. So he came to welcome you to his ward. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I invite Collins to show us the way into our next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now that the session is officially open, I wish to call on stage two people, that is Dr. Linda Musumba and Alex Mwaniki, who will be taking us through the key features of the revitalization and re-energization of the Raas campaign. Dr. Linda Musumba is the head of department in the Audit, Legal and Regulatory Compliance Department, an office domiciled within the Office of the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service. And Mr. Alex Mwaniki is the Director Regulatory Compliance within the Department of Audit, Legal and Regulatory Compliance. Please, you may take up the stage. You can have the two microphones so that you can be able to proceed. Karibuni sani. Mukaribishe kwa makofi.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President, all protocols observed. will make a short presentation with my colleague, the Director of Regulatory Compliance, Mr. Alex Mwaniki, on the reason for why we're here, the details of what our Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service had indicated earlier, just so that you can be able to understand a little bit of why we're here.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll go quickly. It's a presentation of why the revitalization and re-energization of Raas, and we hope the presentation can be put on the screen, please, so that we quickly follow. And Daktari, why did the Head of Public Service initiate this campaign in the year 2023?
Essentially, Alex, the Head of Public Service, when he joined the office, of course, upon his ascendance to that office, one of the things that he did was to commence his tour of duty by carrying out a series of studies. And what he did was to initiate studies. And among the findings from those studies was the fact that regulators, regulatory authorities and agencies are very key to ensuring the achievement of the promise that had been made by His Excellency the President and this administration to Kenyans. And therefore, that finding led him to think about regulators and the space that they can occupy to be able to ensure that there is achievement of those promises that had been made during that campaign. And of course, to address the inertia in the performance of regulators, we've always had regulators for the longest time, and he felt that there was more that could be done to be able to ensure that premier service delivery, which is a core goal of this administration, would be able to be achieved. Then the other thing that he thought about was to be able to incapacitate all the regulatory authorities and agencies to be able to do their work and achieve their mandates, which are really, really core. Because if regulators achieve their mandates, then you're going to see Kenyans appreciative of the fact that they have been reached or felt by government, given that regulators handle very core services and duties in this country. Then obviously, to ensure accountability for citizens, so that I think you indicated earlier on, I think Collins mentioned, NEMA. So all of us, when we leave our houses in the morning, we experience either a good circumstance or situation in terms of rubbish disposal and those sorts of things that Kenyans have habitually complained about. So it was to make sure that those things that press Kenyans, they are sorted out as quickly as possible. But Alex, perhaps you could be able to let His Excellency the Deputy President know who the actors in this campaign are.
All right, and thank you, Daktari. And I have been assisted by our boss, the Head of Public Service, who did indicate in his remarks who these actors are. But I'll quickly run through the next slide, where we have the Head of State and the messages that the Head of State has given to all of us right at the helm. And then we have from our office, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. Next slide. And under the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, we now have 40 Principal Secretaries. These are the 40 Principal Secretaries that have regulatory authorities and agencies in their State Department, cutting across every sector that there is in the Republic, from the health sector, from the aviation sector, environment, food, agriculture, name it. So we have the 40 Principal Secretaries, and these 40 Principal Secretaries have appointed 40 standing committees. The standing committees, Your Excellency, really just then assist the PS to follow up on the various things that have come from the Head of Public Service and to ensure the various returns that have been sent to the Head of Public Service are analyzed. And it's also the point where if there are any issues that a regulator is facing, this is the first point that they would go to before then being escalated upwards. Now, we have 129 chairpersons of boards of regulatory authorities and agencies. And below them, we have 129 chief executive officers who are all present here, 129 corporation secretaries, 129 heads of internal audit. And these 5 categories, Your Excellency, are important in closing that loop. So you have a head of internal audit who understand what is this campaign asking, what does it mean to audit just more than the financial resources that we are used to from the heads of internal audit? Are they now auditing that you have a mandate under your enabling instrument to perform certain points, and are you doing it? And finally, we do have hundreds of implementing agencies, Daktari, and of course, the public that we all serve to ensure that they get the premier services that this government has promised the public. Now, moving on, Daktari, what are the milestones or what are the strategies that the head of public service or the office of the head of public service has used in this campaign? What it is that what has the office done? What scientific ways have been used, and what is being done as we speak to ensure that that vision of His Excellency the President is achieved? Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Clearly from the figures that you have narrated there, quite a number of people, and I think in short we have 129 regulatory authorities and agencies. So among the strategies, the first one, of course, is circulars and guidelines. I believe members in this room, all regulators, our principal secretaries, and our chairpersons and CEOs, the corporation secretaries and heads of internal audit have received circulars that have been sent by the head of public service, informing them of what they need to know, bringing to their attention things that they need to take into account. Accompanying those circulars have been guidelines that have been produced within the office under the direction of the head of public service, which explain, for example, the biannual reporting tool that you normally fill every 6 months to be able to clock your performance. Those are some of the guidelines that you have received to be able to know what to do. Others are sensitization and training. We've had a number of trainings where we've been able to call regulators. You remember meeting in Nairobi, in Kisumu, to be able to be trained on how to fill the biannual reporting tool. Of course, stakeholder engagement by regulatory authorities and implementing agencies. As regulators, you, of course, carry out sensitizations and also you hold stakeholder engagement. Some of you have called on the public service, and we've been able to come to some of your meetings where you've been able to engage with your stakeholders as you bring to their attention the expectations that there are. The biannual reporting tool, one which Alex will speak about in more details, Your Excellency. This is a tool that has got parameters and markers. It is still what we would call a simple tool because I believe that in time, there can be a more complex tool developed to be able to measure even deeper parameters. But for now, at the start of the campaign, the head of public service thought we should use a simpler tool just to be able to align the thinking and begin measuring things. So one of the things that has been interesting for us is how to be able to measure, how to cause measurement across different entities doing different things, but nonetheless still making an attempt to be able to measure. Then we've also been able to do tracking and monitoring. Internally, of course, the regulatory authorities and agencies have their own internal methods to be able to track and monitor. The same with the standing committees. At the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, we are very keen. He's actually very keen, being a scientist himself, on tracking and monitoring. So we have a lot of tools in the office that we use to be able to measure and track. I think the majority of you will attest to the fact that when you have not handed in your report on time, we have called you. And how do we know? It is because we are tracking, we are monitoring everything that is being done under this program. And then, of course, the annual regulatory authorities and agencies conference, this being the third, for which we are grateful to be able to meet all of us. Another thing, Your Excellency, the head of public service has been keen on meeting all actors together to be able to meet our principal secretaries who lead within the state departments, meet them at the same time or together with the standing committees, at the same time with the corporation secretaries, the CEOs, and the heads of internal audit, because it's a loop. If you call only the PSs at all times, no doubt there are meetings which will be exclusive for the PSs. There'll be those that will be exclusive for the different, but often it is good to be able to call them together, as the head of public service has pointed out, so that there's alignment and the loop is closed. The information is communicated at the same time and people receive it at the same time in the same way. So Alex, perhaps you could maybe draw attention. What are some of the milestones from the efforts that have been made by all these people? who are gathered in this room.
All right. Some of the milestones, and I'll go very quickly through these ones, is that there was an exercise at the beginning of this administration where the office reviewed the executive order to isolate all institutions that carry out regulatory mandates or roles and onboard them to this campaign. You will note, Your Excellency, that according to the SCAC categorization, we have about 78, about 80 regulators that have been categorized as regulators by SCAC. But you have also seen, Your Excellency, that the list in this campaign is 129. So that exercise involved going through the statute of every agency that we have in government and picking out, of course, there's the obvious 78, 80 that are regulators, but then beyond that, we have a whole lot of others who have a mandate that is regulatory in nature. They set standards, they superintend certain things, they enforce certain things. They have not been classified as a regulator, but they do have a role. That was the first task. And that is the people who are presented in this room. We've had a challenge sometime, and I'll speak to it shortly, when the person you're speaking to as a regulator indicates, but I'm not a regulator. And we have to open the act that establishes them together with them. And we read, let's go to section 4C. And that right there is what the head of public service is looking for. Because the moment you then don't pay attention to that provision that gives you powers under the law to either cancel, register, license, and so on, then we'll have a problem. The loop will not be closed. Of course, the sensitization of the Raas, Dr. You have spoken to that in detail, and then spotlighting performance and achievement of the core regulatory mandate as an integral part of daily operations. You will note that there was a ceremony in December where the head of public service recognized some of these regulators because of exemplary performance. And I think it's something that is going to then be happening every year as he guides us on certain parameters that the office has established. Then the focus here really is on premier service delivery as the deliverable for regulatory action. You will note, Your Excellency, the program is rich with sessions that the regulators will be speaking themselves on what it is that they have done to ensure that there's premier service delivery to the Kenyans. But those are just 4 of the milestones. And Daktari, would you maybe speak to the other 4, because they are quite a number?
Very quickly, was the development of a framework for the working of the regulatory authorities and agencies space. That is the tool itself. To make that tool, we were able to have feedback from some of the regulators who were able to tell us their thoughts, as well as from the principal secretaries. We sent out a questionnaire just to be able to get feedback on that. And then today, Your Excellency, there's the regular self-evaluation as a mechanism for managing and progressing performance. This is where you ask regulators to be able to evaluate themselves based on certain parameters. Being the 3rd year, and with about the 4th or the 5th biannual report, we track from the last 2 that a regulator has been able to hand in and see whether you rated yourself at 5 in the last 3rd one. The last one, perhaps you rated yourself at 7, and this time maybe you've given yourself an 8, and just see that growth and how it, how it progresses. Then the annual Raas conference, this being a very wonderful space for regulators to be able to have peer review and be able to speak to one another. There has emerged, of course, a community now of the regulators who know one another, and they're able to cross-check and find out more about what each is doing. We've also seen some regulators collaborating, being able to work jointly because their mandates either overlap, that's a solution to the overlap, or their mandates are complementary, and therefore working together has been a good thing. Something that the head of public service alluded to, the element of self-direction, hoping that, as he said, in the conferences, from this conference going forward, that there can be an element of the regulators themselves also taking charge of themselves to be able to come together and see how they can be able to move together. So I think lastly, Alex, perhaps you could be able to talk about, what to look forward for in this 4th campaign, the 4th year, entering the 4th year of the campaign.
All right, as we move to the next slide, things we are looking forward to as we enter the 4th year of this campaign, we are pressing on to Singapore, Your Excellency. We are pressing on to Singapore. What we are trying to look for, what we are trying to achieve is the visibility of the norms and the standards that you set as regulators, a facilitative posture. The Head of Public Service from the beginning of this campaign, Your Excellency, has had a consistent message. Yes, you are a regulator. Wewe ndio mwenye kiboko. When something goes wrong, you're the one to come and, and punish, so to speak. But as a regulator, you must also then be seen to be facilitative. So it's a thin balance, Your Excellency, that the regulators have been urged to achieve. In as much as Natua Kiboko, I'm also facilitating compliance. So that is not when a regulator comes on site, when they see an EMA vehicle, or they see an NCA vehicle, or they see the next vehicle, then people are running and scrambling. Or they see Nakada. I think those are the ones we are more used to, people running when a Nakada vehicle passes. But it is to be more facilitative in as much as we are looking at enforcement. So that balance, to achieve that balance of facilitating, and of course, ensuring there's compliance and enforcement, what we look for in the 4th year is an enhanced stakeholder engagement. We will not move far if we are not moving with our stakeholders. And that alliance has to be built for compliance. This is to implementing agencies and the public. The third is for us to develop acting reporting tools. We note, Your Excellency, Head of Public Service, some of the feedback that we have received is that some of the Raas have now started issuing biannual reports to the implementing agencies. The same way that the Head of Public Service requires you to submit your biannual reports, the feedback from yourselves is that we have also developed custom-made certain forms that require our implementing agencies to return, and of course, the issue of requires strict reporting thereof. So yes, you have submitted the forms, but are you following up to ensure that everyone has complied in terms of the returns that you then seek from them? And of course, all actors to take lead. And again, I say again, Your Excellency, the Head of Public Service invited, particularly from the agencies, actually 6 people. You have the chairperson of the agency, you have the chairperson of the independent board committee, or the committee that deals with the core mandate. You have the CEO, you have the corporation secretary, and the head of internal audit. So even if a chairperson was to leave because the end of term or for whatever reason, there's a board member who's there. If the CEO is to leave, you have the corporation secretary, who is again the link between management and the board. You have your internal audit present. And these core heads are the ones to take the lead and to cascade whatever needs to be cascaded down to everybody else. And the last, as we look forward to the 4th, again, as the Head of Public Service indicated in his remarks, is the challenge of self-direction. The challenge of self-direction to ensure that from now till the 4th conference, we have a small committee formed by yourselves that would run this campaign in collaboration with the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service.
Alex, perhaps maybe you could just, if Collins allows me, he's supposed to then take you, Your Excellency, through the results of the biannual reporting tools that have just recently been returned by the regulators. So if you kindly allow.
Thank you. This will be a shorter presentation, Your Excellency. Most of it has been covered from that initial presentation. If we go to the next PowerPoint presentation, Silas, would be grateful so that we quickly run through this. And just to, are we on? Okay. So these are the biannual reports that were developed by the Office of the Head of Public Service. They have moved from the first edition in 2024. There was a second edition, and there was now a third edition, which is what has been analyzed. And I'll quickly just take you through the slides to give that report. So we'll just move to the next slide. Oh, thank you. So again, the foundation of these reports began in May 2024, circular issued by the Head of Public Service. The returns that we are looking at were returns that were submitted in October and 31st of March, so they are biannual. And once the agencies do these returns, they send them to their standing committees at the State Department. And again, the dates for those given for the reports, the first biannual reports, 2025, they were then submitted to the standing committees, and the standing committees submitted reports to the Office of the Head of Public Service. The second biannual, 31st of March, from the agencies, and on 9th of April, we received the reports from the standing committees. If we move on to the next slide, so 2025, now last year's conference, the compliance rate of returns was 84.5%. What we are looking at now, we have received from yourselves, the regulators, 96% compliance. So, Head of Public Service, you recall, you raised a question and a challenge in the last conference. How can you be a regulator asking for compliance, yet you yourself cannot comply with a simple biannual report that is requiring you to fill and submit? So we have seen an increase, and of course, there's always a little failure, and we have 12 agencies, Your Excellency, out of the 129 who did not submit the reports as required. And of course, this is a concern for the 12, that is, because the same question that the Head of Public Service raised, we raise it again. You are a regulator. You require people to comply with certain standards or norms that you have set, yet you fail to comply despite follow-ups and reminders. So that is the status of compliance. So it has been impressive this year. So 96 and compliance and 4%, 96 compliance and 4% did not comply. We move on to the next slide. This is an interesting slide. And this slide is on mandate misalignment and its implications. Your Excellency, there are a number of entities that have classified themselves. In that tool, they have returned the returns, yes, and they're telling us, guys, we are implementers. And they call and say, we wrote to you, we are implementers, we do not regulate. But when we review their frameworks, there's a clear, or rather they have dual mandates. Yes, you are an implementer, but there's a provision in your law that gives you a regulatory mandate. And this now raises a critical concern, Your Excellency, when you have an entity that does not recognize its regulatory role, how then effective will that entity be in discharging that particular mandate? So you have ticks in all, you have, let's say, 9 mandates. You have ticks in 8, but 1 you do not have because you are an implementer and you don't want to get involved in the regulatory role. And I think one of the things that we're going to do, Your Excellency, is engage the few that have returned reports indicating they do not regulate. Some have even indicated we're in the process of changing the law to remove that provision. Others have said, by the way, if you give us funds, we are going to implement that particular mandate. So it's a conversation we will request Head of Public Service to guide us on how to engage the few that have clearly indicated we are not regulators. So it means basically the powers that you have, the statutory powers that you have are being utilized if you are not ticking performance on all of them. We have a very important session after this, Your Excellency, where some regulators will be talking to us on how they measure the impact of their regulatory mandate outside the government frameworks. And I think it will form a very important conversation at that point. So the concern that this raises is where an institution has misinterpreted its mandate, then there's a risk right there. And one of the issues of this conference is to ensure that there's alignment, as you have guided in your opening remarks, as well as from the Head of Public Service. Now, allow me to just spend 2 minutes, Your Excellency, on this very important slide on how your regulators have rated themselves. In every of these biannual reports, we request them rate yourself. So 24.5% rated themselves a perfect 10. And they have indicated, we checked all the parameters from our performance. It's a perfect 10. It's always that example when you ask a public servant to rate themselves, and you see a picture of the cat, which is a public servant, but when they're rating themselves, is a reflection in the mirror of a lion. That is what self-rating is. You are a cat, but because you have faith in yourself, you are seeing the lion. But here we have a challenge, Your Excellency. 52.5%, which is more than half, gave themselves a confident 8. So they said we were 8, and they gave a few reasons. If we get this, we fix this, we'll be 10. Now, 9.5%, it was a fair. They just said to go 5, 4, and again, reasons are given. And the 9.5% did not rate themselves. Your Excellency, these are the people who said we are not regulators. So in that tool, they said NA, NA everywhere. So even the rating themselves, they did not rate themselves. And the question that begs is, the head of public service has requested you to rate yourself. And it's an important slide because even those who rated themselves as fair, they gave certain reasons that the office is then able to pick up and facilitate to ensure that every regulator can rate themselves 8 and above. So the overall was self-confidence, majority were there, but we must explore, and part of this conference will be doing this, what top performance means and address those gaps that exist in self-assessment. And Your Excellency, even in those who rated themselves as 10, we must all ask our tests that has to be done to ensure those self-ratings, and as Dr. indicated, we have to look at your rating in the last biannual and the last 3 biannual reports. I will not go through these in more than 30 seconds. These are some of the key factors that they indicated. This is working, and this is what is helping them rate themselves at 10. There are those who say we have digitized so many products, we have capacity to build our staff, we have better standardization, and of course the proactive enforcement. If we move on to the next slide, which is the barriers, those who are below, who are fair, Your Excellency, you will note that there are some entities that have gone beyond what it is that is provided for by government. They have found ingenious ways to get funds, particularly for their core mandate. These, they have been discussed. There's inadequate staffing. Again, the question will be thrown back to the board and the management. There were those who said it's a legacy backlog. We are still trying to clear what was done badly in the previous times. External dependency that elongate end-to-end timelines. Now, from number 5, Your Excellency, you have a regulator that says that we are doing so badly because we have manual and complex licensing processes. Yet the solution for that number 5 is within you. Those who had manual and complex licensing processes, this is what they did. They activated very simple digital processes to ensure we are efficient. This poor technology integration, again, the solution for this is within the regulation. It's those vague responses, Your Excellency, that someone would give, but it's not very clear what this means, but they were there. And then pending bills and operational interferences, then outdated acts, close the loop. If you close these other ones so that there's no overlap, we are going to be better. And the head of public service has been clear where their mandates overlap, GAOs together with the police, so that they're able to move as one entire sector whenever they are doing whatever they need to do. I will not move on slide in just 2 seconds. 31%, there was a question in the questionnaire. Have you been recognized? Have you been recognized or rewarded or acknowledged? 31.5% say that because of our work, we have been recognized in the African continent, in the East African region, and so on. And that's 31.5%. So 31.5 of 129 do have been recognized. Your Excellency has seen more visibility of these regulators and also being recognized. Let's move on to the next slide. The next slide, we have some suggestions. And move on to the conclusion, the last slide. Oh, sorry, no, previous slide, sorry. Just allow me to, one of the suggestions here, besides the digital transformation overhaul, is the zero tolerance enforcement policy. As mentioned here earlier, of that campaign that the head of public service has initiated of prompt corrective, lawful consequences, 100% that is desired. We have quite a number of suggestions there, Your Excellency. Move on to the last slide. I'll conclude. I think I've taken more time than I had been given. But just to conclude, of course, deal with the 4% in a very special way. Here they are increasing, leveraging digital tools and stakeholder engagements.
Professor. Now, the next presentation is going to be done by the senior advisor to the President on Constitutional Affairs, that is Professor Makau Mutua. Let's seated in this room and they are not lawyers. Please, you'll receive a certificate for participation for Law Class 101. That is the social foundations of law. So please.
When they sing very many praises of you, of course, with the exception of what the Deputy President said, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, in the legal profession and in the professoriate. Professor Kindiki is a thinker and an academic. And I just want to say that we never had a government in this country that is led by 2 PhDs. The president, of course, if you want to think about it this way, it is a thinking government from the very top. But one thing that humbled me and almost brought me to tears was the very kind words that the Deputy President said about me. It used to be called the third world. Our scholarship is not done to amuse ourselves. It is done to help our societies. I also want to thank my good friend Felix for inviting me to say a few words here at this conference in contest against the state. And at one point, some of you may not know, I was actually exiled by the state of Kenya. And I want to say that part of what makes my work easier within the state is because of folks like the Deputy President. This is a tell you how to do your jobs or to lecture you on the minutiae of called the deep state, meaning that it is that part of the government that is perpetual and that keeps the state to keep the country going. It is the brain trust of the country. So your duty as regulators is really sacred. And with all seriousness, as the Deputy President actually said. But I just want to map out for you a few things for you to consider, because I don't want to lecture for too long. The first thing that we should understand, to ask ourselves, is what kind of a state are we in? In Kenya. Because unless you understand this fundamental question, you will not be able to understand the purpose of your job. Not how to do your job, not how to count things, not how to categorize things, not how to see like a state, but what kind of a state are you in? And what is the purpose of the state that we call Kenya today? And I want to say that we are not a nation. I want us to begin there. We are a state, we have a government, we have a country. Yet, we are a nation in embryo, meaning that we are like a child who is being baked in their mother's womb. And I say this as a student of the African state, and as the Deputy President knows, he's also a student of the African. Trying to tame this state, to make it ours. States can be either benign or malign. They can be either benign or malign. Because a state essentially is a creature of violence. I want to repeat that. The state is a creature of violence. But I also want to say that not all violence is bad. Okay? And you can quote me on that. State is a creature of violence that oscillates between being benign and being malign. It oscillates between those two pendulums, of being malign or being benign. And the purpose of the state is three arms of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, is to submit itself to the people. That is the predicate of the 2010 Constitution, to subject itself to the people who are sovereign, as the Deputy and written about. This is the first objective of the state: to understand that the people who live in it, that the colonial state treated us as subjects. And since 1963, what we've been trying to do is subjects have no rights. Citizens do. Subjects do not. Subjects do not control their state. Citizens do. So this is one overarching normative, that you are not here to superintend over citizens. You are not here to imagine that you are more president. It is not the office of the directors of agencies. The highest office is the office of the citizen. This is the office of the citizen. So this is the fundamental lesson that agencies must learn to decolonize the state of the people, to help us cohere as one nation, to help us develop here as one nation, to help us develop a national consciousness as a public subject. You must have that zeitgeist. You must have that zeitgeist as a Kenyan. That is number one. As a Kenyan. That is number one. And puts the citizen at the center. Of public life. the 2010 his house, the father of Yash guy, his house, the father of Yash guy, because Yash guy, because Yash guy, because the father could buy bottled, because Yash guy, because the father could buy bottled beer, and he could not. Happiness among the people, and he could not. Happiness among the people. Happiness among the people. You as regulators, whether you like it or not, did you know that? Is to make it will lead us to an ethical conduct, and it will lead us to corruption. I said that process of this country as public trust of this country, as public trust, as a public trust, as public trust, as a public, so that we can have things to reinvest in. We can have things to reinvest in our people. Reference to trail, third world approaches to international law, of which I'm one of the founders, along with another Kenyan called James Gadhi, hegemony. So that power and hegemony can go away, so that power and hegemony can go away and be used things. I've distilled this and be used things. I've distilled his, his philosophy of the state. I don't know whether, his philosophy of the state. I don't know whether he knows that I've done this, but I've done it. I want to conclude with a few remarks. One is I have seen the indexes. And if you can answer that question, you'll be able to answer the next question that I'm going to put to you. And that next question is the one that was asked by the late Honorable Raila Odinga. Okay? Are we carrying the people along? I leave it there. Thank you so much.
Up so he can lead him to where the photo session will be. So let us be upstanding as our host leads our chief guest out, followed by the PSS. So that will be the first group, which will be the PSS. The next group will be the chairpersons, if you know you are a chairperson. Mungoje kidogo tu, chairpersons. Okay, naambiwa hapa ni make announcement. Kuna announcement hapa fulani. We have booths outside there. Booths. Now it's in the National Syndemic Disease Control Council in conjunction with County Government of Kitui is offering the following services at the tent pale nyuma: blood pressure, blood sugar, BMI levels,